Ooh, okay. How hot is this? Okay, as we're waiting for everybody to come in, you can see there's two links on this page. The top one, which looks really painful to type in, is actually just our ed board. So this is a great time to open up our ed board. It should be on your dashboard, or if not, you could type in this delightful link up here. Every lecture, we're going to have an ed thread where you can post your questions and upvote questions, and I will answer those questions. I'll pause at various moments in the lecture to answer them. You can also post questions there if you're watching this recording later. So we're going to use Ed to answer any written lecture questions. There's a second link that hopefully is not quite as hard to type in. It's that pollev/champk. There should be a live poll everywhere there, just to sort of test out this system. So while everybody's kind of getting seated, try and pull up those two links. Let me know how this goes. We playing around with all these delightful platforms. Cool. Let's see. And let me make sure that I have. Yes. Okay, looks like people are responding to the poll everywhere. Very exciting. And I'm going to pop this open. So I will look here for any questions throughout lecture today. Okay. All right, come on in, everybody. I will admit this is kind of far for me to walk, so if you're from the engineering department, no worries on being late. I know Packer is really far north for us compared to where we usually hang out. If we're in your stomping grounds, thanks for having us. All right. Okay. Quick show of hands. How many people were able to get access to the Poll Everywhere link? Okay. That is very promising. Okay. Quick show of hands. How many people have been able to get access to that ed post for our questions? Oh, okay. It's almost like y'all have been going to school online exclusively for the last 2 years and just know how to do this stuff now. Amazing. Okay, well, in the interest of time, I'm going to get started, but please feel free, filter in, find some space. We got all of that super fun, exciting syllabus stuff to talk about today. Also, I always say this at the start of quarter, this is supposed to be CSE 373. If you in the wrong place, no shame. I did that once. So now is the time to find the other classroom that you're meant to be in. But yes, welcome to the first day of CSE 373, Data Structures and Algorithms. My name is Casey Champion. I'm going to be your lecturer for this quarter. This is absolutely my favorite class to teach, and I cannot tell you how freaking excited I am to be like actually in person and teaching this quarter. So I apologize for the massive nerd energy, but like, y'all, I love talking about this stuff. So prepare for my unbounded energy when it comes to data structures and algorithms. Slow connection. Let's see how that turns out. All right, cool. I'm gonna click to the next slide. But you can answer any of these things. Like I said, go to the ed board. You should be able to find that thread, and the poll everywhere will stay live for a while. Okay. What are we doing today? I'm going to do all that super fun syllabus stuff. So we'll start off. Welcome, everybody, to 373. I have had this slide ever since spring of 2020, and I feel like I have to change it just ever so little to address the new apocalypse that has been ascending upon us. And this quarter, I'm like, we're back in person, but things are still changing rapidly. I know that you might feel like now I'm supposed to be my best self as a student, but it's okay, y'all. I know we're all still struggling with the change. I want you to know before we get into anything, like the point of this class is not for me to just get to geek out on data structures and algorithms. I teach this class because very sincerely, I think this is the class that opens up opportunities in the tech industry, period. That's why it's my favorite class. So we are here for you. We are all in this together. As an instructor, I want you to know that you should think of yourselves as humans first, students second. So my job is to try and make it as easy and accessible for you to be successful in this class according to whatever your definition of success is. So as we are moving throughout this quarter, if something comes up and is in the way of you showing up as your best student self, I promise I want to hear about it. Even if I can't necessarily immediately do anything, I can do a lot more if we talk about it earlier on. I'll talk about how you can get in contact with me, how you get in contact with the TAs, but I just want to make sure that I say this always at the beginning of class, that every sort of guideline, structure, rule here is set out so that we can run this class at scale, but you are always an individual human, and if you need help or assistance or accommodations, our doors are always open. I literally just want to, like, if I could, I would just give everybody in this entire class 4 hours. It hasn't happened yet, but like maybe this quarter, y'all? Maybe? Yeah? Yes, I believe in you. Okay. Let's see, what else? Also want to make sure that we do our land acknowledgement here. We do acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the First People of Seattle, the Duwamish tribe, and we want to honor this land, and I encourage you to read more about this at realrentduwamish.org if you want to support the tribe and our time on their lands. Okay, the other thing I have to say right away is some of you may be here hoping for ad codes. The CS department doesn't actually even give me ad codes for this course. So if you have specific registration questions, you can email csc373@cs.washington.edu and an advisor will help you. I will let you know that they probably only will overload the class if you are a graduating senior who requires this class to graduate. Other than that, I say, honestly, just keep coming. Is this class maybe on the hard side? Do maybe a number of people decide it's not worth it within the first couple weeks? Yeah, it happens. So there's going to be a lot of movement. Usually some spaces open up. Keep your eye on whatever the MyUW tool is and things like that. But if you have like a really strict reason that you need to get overloaded into the class, I have given the advisor sort of free rein to do that. Unfortunately, I just don't get the final say in it. So does anybody have any questions about overloads or ad codes, about logistical stuff? Cool. Okay. All right. Like I mentioned, my name is Casey Champion. You can call me Casey. I am not technically a professor. I am what's called adjunct faculty. So technically Professor Champion is incorrect, but I've given up on correcting people. I'll respond to Casey. I'll respond to Champion, whatever you want to call me. My pronouns are she, her. Right now, I am technically doing 2 jobs. So unfortunately, you may find me a little less time responsive than your average instructor. And that's because literally I have another full-time job right now. I'm the technical program manager for Chromebooks for Education at Google. So I actually manage the entire Chromebooks for Education program, which is about 50 million users. And I will be real with y'all right now. My work is exploding on my face. It is crazy. I did not have a restful spring break. But I try really hard to not let Google know that like they're my second favorite. But y'all, they're like my second favorite. So you are always my first favorites. I promise I will do my very best to be as accessible as possible for you. However, because I know that I might not be so much so, we have an absolutely amazing staff of TAs. And I know like every instructor is biased, but I specifically like poach TAs. I'm like, I want the best ones, y'all. And we have an amazing crew working with us this quarter. They are gonna be helping answer all of your questions on the ed board, running your sections, holding office hours. So here is my email, and here is a link to my Calendly. The best way to get in contact with me if you need like a question answered is actually to sign up on the Calendly. That means I'm like gonna be there face to face. We can do it remotely, so you could always sign into a Calendly via Zoom if you wanted, you know, make it a little more accessible for you. You can always come into my office. But if you have a question about the class, about your grades, about accommodations, training circumstances, we're gonna direct all of that kind of stuff to the ed board, so that the TAs can help answer those questions as well, so I'm not as much of a bottleneck. Just a little bit more about me. Like I said, so I'm a full-timer at Google. I was previously at Microsoft. I was previously at Carrot. And my career, pretty much from the beginning, I've been pinballing back and forth between being a professional software engineer and what we would call a program or product manager. Specifically in that PM space, my concentration has been in lowering the barrier of entry to the tech industry. That's why I teach this class. When I was at Carrot, I was the director of interview questions, which means my job literally used to be to write interview questions professionally. The reason I got that job is because when I was at Microsoft, I did hundreds of new grad interviews, specifically trying to figure out how we can make that interview a little bit less of a gatekeepy situation and more of an actual technical assessment. Did we solve the problem? No, we didn't. But you know what? I'm here to teach you the rules to the game and to show you when the game is broken so you can at least play on a fair playing field, okay? That's the goal, all right? So I will do my best to teach you hustles as we go through this. Like I said, I come as a professional software engineer. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the goals of this class are, but you will find that my sort of slant on things is really targeted towards other individuals that are interested in entering the tech industry and how to get over those barriers to entry. I did go to UW myself as an undergrad, and actually I took this very class. I know, very exciting, because I was technically considered a non-major. I actually majored in electrical engineering, concentration in embedded systems here at what's now called the Electrical and Computer Engineering Department, ECE instead of EE. I've been teaching here at UW as an instructor for about 4 years now, I think. And before that, I was a head TA for the 143 program for a long time. So that's sort of what has brought me here. I used to also write online courses that had like a ridiculous amount of students in them all over the world. So I have all the social medias. If that is your contact of choice, I will fully own I am not the best at all of them. Sorry, Twitter. But if you want, you are more than welcome to connect with me on those. These are, I think, pictures from when during the pandemic. If you can't tell, my coping mechanisms are plants and cats. So I'm really on brand for that elder millennial, y'all. I know. Okay. But if we Zoom at one point, I'm sure you'll meet the cats because I don't know why they're obsessed, but they know when I'm on a conference call and they just really want to show you their booties. That's their favorite thing. Let's see. My Calendly, like I said there, you can schedule times with me one-on-one in 20-minute increments. I am always happy to talk about this class. I'm also always happy to talk about grad school applications, application to the CS department, reviewing essays, career stuff. I'd love to talk to you about any interviews you have coming up. If you're in a negotiation situation, I do a ton of consulting on that, and my students always get first priority. So if you're in a weird situation and you would love to talk to somebody about it, I am more than happy. I'd love to hear where you're at in your career journey. Okay, let's see. Okay, also real quick, does anybody still need a seat in the class? Anybody back there? I see people gathering. If you want, please feel free to come down. Does anybody want to raise their hand and show where's an empty seat next to you? Yeah, cool. Please feel free if you want to grab some seats. I know it's uncomfortable maybe sitting in the back. Please feel free. So like I mentioned, this class can take a lot of different forms. I will admit there's another instructor that teaches this on different quarters. Just FYI, my version of the course is pretty significantly different than the version that was taught in the autumn and winter quarters. We could talk about what that means difference-wise, but I just wanted to let you know what my exact goals are. So in this class, we're specifically going to be talking about how to design technical solutions. Technical solutions using these magical things called data structures and how we apply algorithms on those data structures to get out the answers and solutions that we're looking for. We are going to do these designs by analyzing how code performs in each different scenario on a few different metrics. We're going to be analyzing from what we call a runtime perspective, meaning how quickly does this code execute all of the instructions. From a memory perspective, meaning as the code execute, how much of the computer's memory is utilized. And we're going to pick up a few different sort of evaluation points as well. My goal with all of these things is, back when I was originally a software engineer, we have a lot of what we call code reviews, which is where you submit your code for the rest of your team to review it and give it a thumbs up and accept it into the formal code base. Those code reviews essentially just turn into design discussions, like the way that your parents were having a loud discussion, upstairs. It's like that kind of stuff. And I want to arm y'all. I want you to walk into any of those discussions and be like, I know, my runtime's the best. I analyzed it. Let's go. And really, I will say from industry, A lot of people don't retain this stuff. If you retain this stuff, you're going to have a huge leg up in those rooms of discussion and in those code reviews. So that's really where my goal is. And also specifically these types of design discussions and analysis is the basis of what technical interviews are. And for those of you that aren't familiar, technical interviews is kind of this weird thing in the tech industry where we've standardized, but like nobody actually standardized it. And so if you ask people, it's all different. We'll talk about how the game's broken. But mostly if you want to become, say, a software developer in test, a program manager, at certain points in the interview process, somebody is going to present you a design scenario and you're going to be expected to write code live in the interview for that interviewer. And then afterwards, analyze and tell them how efficient your code is for the design scenario, which is what we're going to be doing all the time in this class until you are so sick of it that you want to die. And then you walk into the interview and you're like, oh yeah, Casey shouted at me about this for so long. I got this. There's a method to the madness, y'all. So those are just some of the basics of what our goals are in the course. Just to give you some course topics, so we are going to be talking about data structures and abstract data types, or ADTs. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to do a bunch of algorithm analysis. So we're going to teach you a bunch of different algorithms. We're going to talk about how they perform and how to analyze them and compare and contrast. We are going to do searching and sorting and graphs and all these different ADTs. I'll talk more about the details in a little bit, but let's talk more on the syllabus side of things. So as is true of any modern course these days, there is an annoying amount of platforms. At some point, y'all will give me the feedback that there's too many platforms in this class. And I'll be like, yeah, you're right. I keep trying to pare it down. I swear we're doing our best. But here's what we got. So the learning components of this class, we're going to have lectures. That's where we are right now. The lectures will all be recorded and posted on Panopto. You can view those recordings on the course canvas. I will not be having a Zoom during lecture, but you are always welcome to review the recordings afterwards. We are going to have something I call lecture participation polls. This is the poll everywhere. And what these are is for every lecture, there's going to be one question associated with a prompt at the very beginning of lecture. I am not grading these for correctness. A lot of times they're just a little quick pulse way for you to review where you're at in your learning and also for me to review how everybody is doing and coming along. If you do not attend in person, you can still fill out the lecture participation polls. What I do is I will turn them on at the beginning of every lecture, and then I will swap them at the beginning of the next lecture. So to fill out a lecture participation poll, you have from the beginning of the lecture until the start of the next lecture to click into that poll everywhere. So for Fridays, I'll turn it on Friday morning and I won't turn it off until Monday, Monday afternoon or whatever. Sorry, I keep calling it morning because I'm used to teaching in the mornings. We're teaching in the afternoon this quarter. That is going to be pure extra credit. We won't accept late polls. I'll talk a little bit about what the extra credit means. Then the other big pieces that we are going to be grading this course is first, we're going to have something called exercises. They are sort of worksheets where you will likely want to say print out or maybe mark up on your machine a sort of worksheet response. They're good simulations of what an quote exam style question would be. They also are going to reinforce the theory of what we're doing and are going to be a lot more tailored to the types of topics that will come up in an interview. We're going to have about 6 of these. They will be done individually. The TAs will be grading them. My goal is that you spend an hour around. It's really hard for me to plan. Sometimes, everybody has different times. But my goal with these weekly exercises is to not be a huge assignment, to rather be a gut check on what you discussed in section, we discussed in lecture that week. The biggest piece of this course is going to be what we call the programming projects. There's going to be technically 5. We have a 0th assignment, that's pure 143 review to help you get set up in the system. And then we have projects 1 through 4. Some of them are multi-week projects. I will tell you they were all originally written to be individual assignments, but I decided, hey, you have to work with people in industry and I'm the boss, so Now they are partner assignments. You are welcome to work, if you so choose, in groups up to 3. If you are sitting here and you are like, Casey, I have not talked to another human in the last 2 years and finding a partner terrifies me, it's okay, boo. I felt that way too. You do not have to work with a partner. But I will say this, and I will probably say it more times. I have taught this class like 6 times now, 7 times, and I find that the people that end up working individually on the programming assignments tend to fall into one of 2 categories. Either that they're that student that somehow I like never see or meet and they just get a 4.0 in the class. They're out there, y'all. I know. If it's you, congratulations on your intellectual horsepower. There's usually like 3 per class though, FYI. That is a far minority of human. The rest of the individuals that work alone, if they're not in that group, do tend to be the ones that fall the furthest behind. I think it really helps your learning if you have another human to work on, even if you just work on it from the whole beginning and you just talk through it. So I sincerely encourage you, like, since we're actually physically in person, like, look around you, shake hands, talk to humans. I made a post on the ed board. Start looking about what kind of partners you want to work with. You can change your partners every single project. So you're not stuck with somebody for the entire quarter if you don't want to be. If you want to be, hold on to your best friend. Do it, whatever works best for you. For those, you will be submitting 1 submission per group. And then finally, and this is the part that I know is a little weird, and I'm going to be real, is a total change for this quarter. When we returned in person in fall, I did return to our standard style of exams in the class that I was teaching in fall quarter, which was not this class. Bit of a swing and a miss, y'all. I'm going to just say maybe I'm rusty on writing exams. Maybe we're all a little rusty in taking exams. And then I thought about it and I was like, do exams actually mean anything? Does anybody give a crap about if you can memorize code and write it down in a really tense, sweaty room in like a 1-hour period? I've decided the answer is no. So what we're going to be doing instead is we're going to be doing things I call simulated exams. And what that means is, at least for the midterm, I am going to release what will probably look like a standard midterm style exam. It will be intended to take you about an hour's worth of time. However, you will have an entire weekend to work on it. You can look up your notes, you can look up the internet. The only thing you can't have is staff help. You're going to complete that assignment, and then I'm going to release the answers to that assignment. And what you're going to do is you're going to actually submit for grading your reflections on how you did in comparison to the solutions. So I'm not grading your original answers. I'm grading your reflection on your learnings and the corrections of your answers at a later time. Questions on that piece? I know that's weird. Yes?
Are we allowed to discuss this with other people in the class?
Great question. Are you allowed to discuss it with other people in the class? You know, I keep saying no to that question, and then I inevitably get some like private DM that's like, I saw people at Odegaard talking about the thing. I too was a student once, I hear it. So what I'll say is that I will like everybody to submit an individual copy of this assignment. I'm going to talk a little bit about what academic misconduct means in this class, but I am okay if you discuss that assignment within the context of our academic misconduct, which essentially means you can talk about it in vague generalities, but if I see somebody cut and paste or all they do is change the variable names, you guys, we know that trick, y'all. That would be considered, quote, cheating in that context. I'll talk in more details. But yes, you are able to talk about the conceptual portions of that. And again, part of it is just, I really believe that when you're discussing with other people, you're learning more. And I don't know, at this point, I'm waiting for the deans to get mad at me for grades. And I'm like, hey, guess what? I'm just going to optimize for learning until anybody shows up and tells me I actually need more grade variation. So screw it. Talk to people. Learn. That should be what matters, right? We'll see. So those are sort of the 3 things that you're going to be actually graded on. There will be another simulated assessment for the final exam. It will be a little bit longer. I will fully admit I'm still figuring out the details on it, but it might likely have a peer review component to simulate a code review. because my bosses find that very charming. And right now we are very much playing the game of how do we convince Casey's bosses to like give her a break because class is important. Also, I think it would really help. And then, of course, we will have office hours. The TAs will hold office hours where you can come, you can ask them about your exercises, about your programming assignments. I will hold my own office hours, probably Friday afternoons. You are also welcome to drop in and ask me anything about course materials or whatever you want to chat about. Anybody have any questions on the learning components so far? Cool. Here's our delightful list of platforms. So there is a class webpage. It's already live. That should be your one-stop shop for the class. It's got links to everything. It's got the calendar. It's at cs.washington.edu/373. I think when in doubt, go to the course webpage and then follow links from there. But just so you are aware, we will be using Canvas for the lecture recordings, and for your gradebook, that's it. I don't post any course content on Canvas other than that. We might end up needing to use Zoom because there might be some online office hours. We're still trying to figure out how to do this transition. Poll Everywhere, that will be that lecture participation poll, that extra credit piece. Gradescope is going to be the other main platform. Gradescope is where you will be submitting all of your assignments. So that's where you will be submitting your exercises, your programming assignments, and your simulated exams. It's where the TAs will be grading your materials and then returning your grades to you. So Gradescope is definitely going to be one of the main places that we interact. The other big place that we interact will be the Ed discussion board. Like I said, there's a bunch of, we're going to be using it for lecture questions. You can find partners there. You can ask questions of the TAs. It's a great way and probably the fastest way to get any information out of the course staff. GitLab, if you're not familiar with GitLab, it's a competitor to, say, GitHub. It's just a code repository solution. We will be using that to give you your starter code for all of the programming assignments in this course. You're going to be given starter code, which is a kind of significant amount of code, which I recognize if you've only taken 142 and then 143, it's kind of a big change. So you're not usually starting from scratch. You got to start from code and figure out how to change it, which is very analogous to real world software development experiences. So GitLab is how we will be distributing that starter code, and then you will take your GitLab link and you will click it into the Gradescope submission, and then that's how you will submit your code. To submit your exercises, you will probably want to take a picture or scan, or give us the PDF copy if you did a digitization of your worksheets, and then same thing for the simulated assessments. And then there is an anonymous feedback tool that there will be a link posted. You are always welcome to tell us how things are going. Like I said, we figuring it out. We all evolving. I don't know. The world is crazy. So if anything's not working for you or you have any suggestions and you would like to keep your name off of it, we are very open. We would love to hear how things are going. Any questions so far? Yes?
So class webpage, is it on the Canvas or?
So the class webpage is at cs.washington.edu/373.
Okay.
That's where the class webpage is. Canvas will be mostly empty. It's just going to be lecture recordings in your gradebook.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Great. I think I mostly spoke to this. You can read this in your own time. I just want to talk about some other syllabus stuff here. So we talked about simulated exams. One thing to note on the simulated exams piece of it is that no late exams will be accepted. No late polls will be accepted. So keep that in mind. That's because we have to move on to the next thing. We just can't wait around for those. However, for your assignments, so you would have, these are like your programming assignments. Programming. So like I said, you could do those solos, groups of 2, groups of 3. They are going to go out on Wednesdays. Your first one will be assigned this Wednesday, and they're also going to be due on Wednesdays. Some will be 1-week assignments, some will be 2-week assignments, and their very last one's a 3-week assignment. That doesn't mean it's only a week of work and you can decide when to do that 1 week. That's because we recognize these are things that will take that amount of time to work on. Exercises, those are going to go out on Fridays and also be due on Fridays. Your first exercise will not be this week. It will be next week. And these 2 items here are eligible for our late day policy. So the way a late day works is we have a due date for every assignment. Every person in here right now starts with 7 late days per individual. If I had a programming assignment due on a Wednesday and I would like to instead turn it in on a Thursday, I will use 1 late day because that counts for you can turn that item in with no late penalty up to 24 hours late. You can use up to 3 late days per assignment, and then that assignment closes. So if you are trying to use 3 late days on an assignment due on Wednesday, you could turn it in Thursday, Friday, up until Saturday. Our assignments will be due at 11:59 p.m., but then you would not be able to turn that assignment in on Sunday. The late day penalties are applied by individuals. So if you are working in a group, it will only penalize the person that runs out of late days. Once you run out of late days, you get minus 5% for each 24-hour period after the turn-in. And then again, you cannot turn in items further out than 3 days late. That being said, if you are having a situation and we need to talk about some extenuating circumstances, you've got a medical emergency, you've got something going on, email me, we will talk about it, okay? Does anyone have any questions on the late day policy or how that works? Cool. Here is the grade breakdown. So the programming projects are going to be worth 40% of your grade. Like I said, those are the ones that are kind of the big hitters. The way the programming assignments work is you're going to submit them to GradeScope. GradeScope will automatically run tests against your code and then will report back to you what your score is. And if you don't like that score, you can resubmit until you get the score that you like. And then we sort of capture what your score is at the due date moment. Unless you continue to submit it late, then we will automatically deduct your late days for you. So I will tell you, most people shoot for as close as they can get to 100% on the programming assignments because of that sort of feedback loop. There is a little bit of like, just FYI, we have this sort of like limiter of how many times you can submit within an hour period so that you're not just like spamming the GradeScope server and crashing it for everybody. But technically, you do have unlimited submissions. Just FYI, we had to like space them out a little bit so we didn't crash servers. Yes?
Is it the latest submission or the highest submission that gets graded?
Latest submission. But you can go back and change which submission. So in GradeScope, you'll see there's a little tool that, like, let's say you have a later submission, you're like, ooh, I was lower on that. Just make sure that it's currently set to whichever submission you want us to grade. Yes?
I think I'm confused on the submission part. So is this, you're saying we submit our project to GradeScope?
Yes.
Okay, and it has a program that just tells us the score we got?
Yes. So it's going to automatically run what we call unit tests on your code. And those unit tests are corresponding to a certain amount of points. As you pass the tests, we tally up all your points, and then we'll tell you how many you're currently getting. Yeah.
So I guess, like, does it care about, like, styling and commenting?
What a good question. So here's what I'll say. And I know 14X can cause us a little bit of trauma in the style category. I just taught 142 for the first time last quarter, and like I feel it, y'all. So in this class, we do have a very basic style checker that will run. It will check for proper spacing, good variable names, some automated stuff like that. But that is the only style we will be assessing in this class. I will admit, like, as a professional engineer, do I think that's necessarily like the kindest thing for you going into industry? Like, I will just be real with y'all. The level of detail in which the 14X program assesses your style is like nothing compared to industry. I know. I don't mean to scare you, but like, I mean, like, we engineers, we are detail-oriented folks, and we care about every space and every capital and everything. But a lot of times that's something that you figure out over time with your code review process, and this class is hard enough. So want you to know that that type of skill isn't going to go away in industry, but at least for this class, you just have to run this thing. And that automatic style runner that I mentioned, we have instructions for how you can set it up on your own IDE so you can check your style as you go along too. Yes?
Oh, so I think another one. So we don't have to use JGraphs. So we can use like any like.
Great question. You do not have to use JGrasp. In fact, I think you may find JGrasp is not sufficient for this course because for our programming assignments, you will have multiple files, and JGrasp is not great at multiple files. The IDE that I personally suggest is IntelliJ. It is based on Eclipse, but I find that people freak out a little bit less using IntelliJ because the workspace folder is a lot easier to find. If you use Eclipse, you may or may not know what I'm talking about. However, if you're like, Casey, I love Eclipse, do you? Maybe you're into Sublime. Get it, Apple users. Whatever works best for you. Just be aware that RTAs are likely only going to be familiar with IntelliJ. So if you have some Sublime or Eclipse issues, they may not be able to assist you. If you are more comfortable, you are always still welcome to use JGrasp. You just might find it not as full functional as you would like it. Okay, the extra credit piece here. So the way that I use extra credit is there are, I believe, 29 lectures this quarter. There will be a poll everywhere question for every lecture, including today's. At the end of the quarter, I go and I look what is the maximum number of lecture polls that somebody has accomplished. Usually I'll find that there's like one person that didn't miss one, but then a lot of people get somewhere around 25 or 26. I kind of figure out where that line is, and then whoever met that line, I will bump your final grade up to 0.05 GPA-wise, based on how many of those you accomplish. So what I do is I take all of your percentages, I lay them out to GPAs. I will post the syllabus later that gives you some bare minimum sort of guarantees. You will find that they are on the low side, but this is me just saying if you get, I believe I say if you get at least a 90%, I'm going to guarantee you like a 3.0. It doesn't mean you're going to get that grade. That just means the minimum grade. And a lot of times it skews higher than that. So I make all of your grades. After all the grades are done, I then go in and I apply the extra credit. And if you had enough extra credit, and let's say you are currently tracking to get a 3.22, that would technically round to a 3.2. But if you did all the lecture polls, maybe that then becomes a 3.27, and that rounds up to a 3.3. Yeah? So it's my attempt to give you that little bit of, really, it's just for me so that I'm like, oh, they're so close. Round them up. They showed up to every lecture. That's really what's going on there. Yeah? Ooh, let's take a look, actually. What a great time to check in on it. Okay. So this is one thing about the Poll Everywhere, and I do require that you need to sign in if you haven't used a Poll Everywhere account with your UW Net ID. That way I know it's you that filled out the Poll Everywhere item. Like I said, I am not grading these for correctness. I'm going to be real, y'all. I never even bother to look who got them correct or not. I just get a count of your UW Net ID and how many you filled out at the end. I'm never going to try and expose your name up here as to how you answered it, stuff like that. Okay, a few questions. Yes?
Will this be graded in participation today? Because I assume some people are having problems connecting.
I will tell you which ones are going to be graded or not graded. I will be real, at some point, numerous times, the Poll Everywhere will just shut off and things like that, and I'll let you know whether something's going to be included or not. So yes, I'm not sure about this one yet. Probably this one will be excluded for that exact reason. Yes?
I don't have this problem, but I'm looking at the screens of people next to me, and they're signed in through UW accounts. They're still not able to submit the polls.
Oh, interesting. Okay, real quick show of hands. How many people are not able to sign into the Poll Everywhere right now? Okay, wait. Put your hands down. How many people are able to sign into the Poll Everywhere? Okay, 50-50. That's a unique situation. So yeah, very likely this one will not be officially graded then, because you should actually deserve a proper chance to do this. I will, after this class, figure out what the frickety frack's going on, and I will post about it on the ed board. Thank you all for your patience. Yeah, you might have to make a UW sign in order to do this, but I will figure it out. Other questions so far? You can kind of see, and maybe I'll wait until Wednesday to show this, but I thought it'd be fun to hear a little bit about why people are taking this class. Shout out to those furthering their programming abilities. That is absolutely one of the great things that we are going to accomplish here in class today. Those 7 people taking it for fun. Wow, you party animals. Good for you. Me too, friends, me too. Those 2 at the bottom, I hope you find your way. But thank you for your honesty. So we'll do a little thing like this. It's a great way for me to sort of see where you're at in life, and I will sort of show you so you can kind of assess where you are in comparison to the class anonymously. Any other questions on all of this fun syllabus stuff for the moment? Okay, I'll say here on the academic misconduct side of things. So the way that I think about academic misconduct when it comes to code is you're allowed to talk about concepts, you're allowed to talk about strategies, you're allowed to talk about plans or reviews, but please don't speak directly in code. Please don't say to somebody, just type public, static, void, main, like that kind of stuff. Please don't send your code in digital format to anybody. Please don't let anybody take your code in digital format. Please don't let anybody look directly at your screen and then be typing on their screen, and vice versa. We do run a thing called MOS. It means measure of software similarity. It has an algorithm. It will tell me whether or not you have copied and pasted from other students. And I will tell you this as well. People think I don't know how to find all of our assignments up on GitHub. Y'all, my literal job at Carrot used to be to find the leaked solutions for our things. I can even find it even if it's not in English, y'all. Please don't make me do that. Obviously, my Mandarin is crap, but I do have a web crawler, so please don't use any solutions you find on the internet to cut and paste from. You are welcome to use Stack Overflow and search for topics, and maybe you find a snippet of code in a different language. You want to interpret it into Java. Maybe you borrow bits and pieces. But here's what I will say on top of all of those things. As long as you understand what every single character, every single line in your code does, and you can explain it to me, then you've done the assignment. And so if my MOS software comes back and says a ping on, like this person is too similar to this other solution, I will send you an email. I will say, hey, MOS picked you up. What would you like to do? Your solutions are usually like, do you just want to take a 0? Then we're just going to take a 0 on this assignment. It's not going to get reported on your academic record and all that fun stuff. And we all just move on with our life because cheating happens out of desperation and I don't think you're a bad person. Or you want to say, no, Casey, I didn't cheat. And then we will have a meeting where I will have you come in and I'm going to ask you some painfully detailed questions about your code. And if you can answer all of those questions, then great, you've done the learning. Okay? Any questions on academic misconduct? Or I know it's weird compared to other courses. Computer science is a little different. No? We okay? So cut and paste, bad. Speaking in code, bad. That's usually the lines there. And then we talked about extraordinary circumstances. Cool. Let's see. Yes. Okay. I'm going to pop open the ed and see if there's any questions that have been coming up. Cool. Okay. Great. Thank you, TAs. Thank you, Kenny, especially being on top of this. Okay. Great. Looks like we've already got some answers in there. Does anybody have any other questions so far before we move into an exciting 6 minutes of content? Yeah? Okay. All right. Well, okay. I will start with this really pretentious and annoying analogy. And I'm sorry, like I said, I just love this stuff so much. But here's what I think about 373. I hope that you have taken at least 142 and 143. Those are the prerequisites for this course, or their equivalent. Here at the University of Washington, if you didn't take these classes here or took them somewhere else, the way that 142 works is we start off with just basic Java syntax. We do methods, variables, parameters, returns, file, scanner, arrays. I think of CSE 142, that's like vocab. Like you're learning a brand new foreign language. That's when you're just doing like your flashcards. You're picking up new words so you can just make sounds in that language, right? Then you move on to 143, and that's technically called object-oriented programming. everything we do in 373 is technically under the category of object-oriented programming. In technical interviews are all under the umbrella of object-oriented programming. But in 143, that's when you really start to understand what an object is, how to be a client of an object, and how to be a creator of an object. And so what you're doing is you're starting to take that syntax, that vocabulary you picked up in 142, and you're starting to create new things with it. You're starting to piece those bits of syntax together. I like to think of this as grammar. That's like where you're really starting to, speak your first sentences in this new foreign language. You're starting to express some ideas. This class, I'm just going to let you know now, is a bit of a conceptual jump. They are totally redesigning the 14X series. Next year, it will be the 12X series. We are doing it intentionally to try and make this jump a little softer on you, but you're here. So unfortunately, that's not the case yet, but I will let you know there's a bit of a conceptual leap from 143 to 373 because this class, we are not going to teach you any new Java syntax. In fact, I will probably never code in front of you in lecture. I might show you snippets of code. I might talk about how you would implement that code visually, like I'm going to draw a bunch of pictures. I'm going to talk about a lot of pseudocode, but it is going to be entirely up to you to figure out how to accomplish that in Java. Because this is the creative writing class. Now you've got the language. Now you can combine these things, and we are going to use these tools to do wholly new and complicated and transformative designs. There is a reason that this is the class that recruiters ask about before they sign you up for an interview. And technically, a tech industry recruiter considers these 3 classes the only requirements to work in tech. So if you are here and you are not a CSE major, by completing this class, you are officially eligible to apply for software engineering positions. Do you probably want to take some other classes? Because let's be real, you need to sort of rinse and repeat. But technically after these classes, everything is just rinsing and repeating these skills in different areas of technology, in databases and compilers and operating systems and gaming and animation, whatever it is, right? And that's really what a CS major may get a little bit more than somebody that's not, is they get that repetition of these concepts. But that's why I stuffed so much into this class, because I want to make sure that when a technical recruiter says, have you taken data structures and algorithms, you can say, heck yes, I did. I am ready for this interview. That's the goal. Questions? Cool. Okay. Okay. We will end today, I think, here. So this thing is called data structures and algorithms. What the frickety frack is a data structure? It is a way of organizing. We have one more slide, y'all, one more slide. We're so close. A data structure is technically a way of storing and organizing data. All of computer science is about how we take pieces of information and we perform operations on that information. A data structure is how we take that information and put it in a structure that enables us to perform operations on it. Those operations, conducted in a certain order, that is an algorithm. So data structure is how we hold the information, and algorithm is what we do to the information. And we combine these 2 things for a specific desired outcome. All right, I know it's not a fun day doing syllabus. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Please come back on Wednesday, where we will actually talk about linked lists, array lists, and our first ADTs. I'll stick around if anybody has any questions. Thanks so much, everyone.